Maybe I'm just a fat nerd, but I love to
consume.
Nightreign is great because it lets me live out my fantasies of choking down rods of meat and gobbling balls to my heart's content, and I think you're missing out by not participating in this. Nightreign's consumables are a lot more useful than you probably think, and today I want to tell you all about a few of the best ones. Hi everyone, my name's Diabidor, and today I'm going to tell you about Nightreign's consumables. If you find this video helpful, please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing or joining my channel as a member. It really helps me out. Boluses, or as I like to pronounce it, Boluses. Ah yes, balls. Who doesn't enjoy putting them in their mouth? Nightreign's balls are scattered very generously throughout the world. You can gobble them down to cure yourself of a specific status ailment, and also permanently increase your resistance to that ailment for the rest of the expedition. Boluses also give you 20 seconds of health regen when you eat them. I don't know the exact formula, but it seems to scale with your max health or your level, so it'll heal you more when your health bar is bigger. Generally, I wouldn't recommend holding onto them unless you know you're going to run into an enemy which inflicts that ailment, such as grabbing some clarifying boluses ahead of a fight with the Equilibrious Beast who does madness buildup. You can find specific boluses in affinity-based locations. For example, a Madness camp will have lots of clarifying boluses, or a Deathblight ruin will have lots of rejuvenating boluses. Here's a pro tip that can save you some time. You can consume items off the ground without picking them up into your inventory by holding your Use button and pressing the Use Consumable button. That way, if you find boluses and crates and stuff, you can just eat them straight away for the resistance buff and move on.
Meat.
There are 4 meat consumables which provide you with temporary buffs. 3 of these buffs are body buffs, which means you can only have one of them active at a time, so you're going to want to choose wisely based on the situation you're in. The 4th one, Pickled Turtleneck, is a stamina regen buff and can stack with any of the others. The first 2 are Boiled Prawn and Boiled Crab. Boiled Prawn increases your physical damage negation by 15% for 60 seconds, and Crab increases it by 20% for 60 seconds. Suffice it to say that these are significant increases to your damage negation. You find these things all over the place, such as in crates, chests, and in the case of Crab, you can get it by killing the giant crabs found in the ravines in the center and east side of the map. Taking 15 to 20% less damage from most attacks will significantly augment your survivability, and it's definitely a good idea to grab these if you see them. The 3rd body buff consumable is Exalted Flesh, which increases your physical damage output by 20% for 30 seconds. You can find this as an uncommon drop from most crates or chests, and you can also get it as a drop from living jars, like the ones found in magic forts or the castle. This one is a bit more situational because you're not always going to be focusing on physical damage, the obvious example being the Recluse, who typically does magic damage, but even then, however, there are circumstances where this can come in handy, such as using the Rock Sling spell, or for the Revenant you've got bestial incantations like Bestial Sling and Stone of Garink. Characters like Raider, Executor, Wilder, and Iron Eye probably benefit from Exalted Flesh the most considering their already high physical damage output, and Raider in particular can stack a couple relic buffs which make his damage go through the roof when combined with Exalted Flesh. If you're Guardian, his damage output is pretty much always going to be kinda middling, and so I'd recommend giving the Exalted Flesh to someone who can use it better and focusing on Prawn or Crab to become more tanky instead. Finally, there's the Pickled Turtleneck, which is not a body buff so it can stack with any of the others, and this boosts your stamina regen by 10 stamina per second for 60 seconds. This is a huge stamina regen speed buff, and considering the fact that most of your actions in combat require stamina, it's a no-brainer that it's going to be useful. Guardian, in particular, can really benefit from it, because blocking attacks drains a lot of stamina, and his Steel Guard ability drains stamina over time even when not blocking attacks. Having the Pickled Turtleneck active means that when you release the block button, even for a second, you're going to regain a lot more stamina in that time, and so you're going to be able to block a lot more consistently. Fowl Feet. There are 2 kinds of Fowl Feet in Nightreign. The first are Gold Fowl Feet. These are the most obviously useful of the 2 because they increase the runes you get from killing enemies by 10% for 60 seconds. They're best used when killing enemies who already drop large amounts of runes, such as bosses or the enemies in the castle or Shifting Earth locations. If you're using them for bosses, then it's generally best to eat it right before killing the boss. It only lasts 60 seconds, so if you use it at the start of the fight, then the buff might run out before you actually kill the boss. So you want to use it midway through the fight. I usually go around 25% of the boss's max health for the best results. The other kind of Fowl Feet are the Silver Fowl Feet. These increase your item discovery by 30 for 60 seconds. The benefit of this is less obvious and a bit more difficult to explain, but basically it increases the odds of getting better loot from bosses you kill. To my knowledge, it doesn't affect item drops from chests or corpses, though I could be wrong about that, and please correct me if so. But what it definitely does do is increase the likelihood of getting rare or legendary items from bosses. Bosses which have a chance of dropping rare, purple, items will be more likely to drop a rare if you have higher item discovery. And bosses which have a chance of dropping legendary, yellow items, are more likely to drop a legendary with higher item discovery. Now, I'm not going to get into the math here, but with the 30 item discovery from a Fowl Foot, it works out to roughly like a 2 to 3% better chance of getting a legendary from a boss who can drop one. That doesn't sound like much, but over the course of dozens of expeditions, where you hopefully kill at least a few legendary dropping bosses in each one, those odds add up and you find yourself getting a lot more legendaries in the long run. So the benefits aren't necessarily going to be immediate, but all you need to do is pick up this item and use it. The cost is literally nothing, and so when you see these things, grab them, eat them during a boss fight, and trust me, you will get better results over time. And for the best results, if you have an Iron Eye on your team, his passive skill increases everyone's item discovery by default, and you can also keep an eye out for weapons which have increased item discovery as a passive effect, and after a while you will notice that you get better gear on average. Throwing Pots. Throwing Pots are criminally underrated in Nightreign. Early on in your run, they can increase your DPS by a lot, considering your character is pretty weak at the start of the run. They make killing enemies in forts, great churches, and ruins a lot easier, because not only do they do pretty good damage, they can also knock down or stun most humanoid enemies, and even a bunch of bosses. I particularly like using them against the Headless Knights, because knocking them down stops them from teleporting around, so you can fuck them up while they're getting back up. Throwing Pots are also nice to have as a starting relic, or if you find them in the minor camp at the start of your expedition, because they make clearing out that camp much easier. Duchess, in particular, also really benefits from them early on in the run, because they do a good chunk of damage, and her restage skill allows you to repeat that. Toss a couple fire pots at something, hit restage, watch his health bar get decimated. Seriously, do not sleep on these things. Chances are you've got a couple empty inventory slots at any given time, so grab these if you see them and just toss them at the next elite enemy or boss you see. Warming Stones. Warming Stones heal you at a rate of 25 health per second for 30 seconds, meaning they heal a maximum of 750 health. Unlike their counterparts in Elden Ring, the Warming Stones in Nightreign do not cost FP to use, and more importantly, they do not heal enemies, meaning you can freely toss them down for passive health regen during fights. They're great for characters like Guardian, who's generally tanking attacks and standing relatively still, or melee characters like Raider and Wilder, who can just toss one down to make it a bit safer to stay right up in the boss's face. Just keep in mind that each player can only have one Warming Stone active at a time. If you toss a second one down, then the first will despawn. However, since each player can toss one down, you can totally coordinate and throw 2 or 3 down at once for a fuckload of healing mid-combat. Each player can buy 2 of these from the merchant at the Spirit Shelter, and considering your healing flasks are pretty limited during the Nightlord fight, they're a great way to stretch out your effective health during the final battle. Greases. As Souls-like players, I'm sure we're all well acquainted with what it's like to be Greases allow you to apply a damage buff to your weapon for a short time. Unlike in Elden Ring, the greases in Nightreign can be applied to just about any weapon, regardless of its affinity or even weapon class. Even bows can be buffed with greases, so they're useful for everyone. Different greases apply different damage types or status effects to your weapon. Fire, Magic, Lightning, and Holy Grease will add 35 points of their respective attack power to the weapon for 30 seconds. These are especially potent on fast weapons like daggers, claws, and bows, because the added attack power is the same for all weapon types, and the faster weapons will have higher added DPS because of this. However, more damage is more damage, and so any weapon, fast or slow, will still benefit a lot from greases, especially if you use the right grease against the right enemy. Fire Grease is going to be more useful against an Erdtree avatar who has a negative 100 resistance to fire than against a Magma Worm, for example. So if you know which enemies you're going to run into, such as the Magma Worm at the bottom of the crater, then try to plan ahead with the type of grease you bring for that fight. Status effect greases, such as Poison, Rot, Blood, Freezing, and Soporific, Sleep, Grease, will add 30 points of their respective status buildup to the weapon for 30 seconds. Again, these are best used on faster weapons so that you can apply status buildup more quickly, but any weapon will still benefit from them. You can generally find specific kinds of grease in locations with that affinity for that grease. For example, you're likely to find poison grease in poison ruins, or you're likely to find fire grease in fire camps, and so on. There are also two special types of grease. The first is shield grease. This can only be used on a shield, and will reduce the damage you take when blocking attacks by 20%, and reduce the stamina damage you take by 13% for 60 seconds. Guardian loves this stuff. The other kind is Dragon Wound Grease. Instead of adding a flat amount of damage to your weapon, this increases the weapon's physical damage by 10%, making it equally effective regardless of weapon type. It also increases damage done to ancient dragons by 20%, and regular dragons and magma worms by 30%, making it especially effective against them. And here's a pro tip: combine Dragon Wound Grease with Exalted Flesh, plus preferably other physical attack buffs, for ridiculous amounts of damage. Starlight Shards. Starlight Shards restore 60% of your max FP when used. It goes without saying that these are great for FP-hungry characters like the Revenant and Duchess. The Recluse will also benefit from them a lot, but she can recover FP using her Magic Cocktail skill too, so they're not quite as important for her, and if you have a Revenant or Duchess on your team, try to give them to them instead. Starlight Shards can be found in a few places. The regular merchant, found in places like forts, camps, and the castle, will always have 2 of them in his inventory. The rare merchant, found in townships, will sell an infinite amount of them, so if you want to stock up, then that's a great place to make time for. Mage Rises will always have a few crates that are guaranteed to drop them, and locations like Flask Churches have a chance of dropping them from crates too, so those are worth checking as you pass by them. And that's just about it for Nightreign's consumables, or at least the ones that I think are worth talking about in this video. I left out a bunch of them, like the Alluring Pots and Beast Lure Pots are useless for throwing pots. There's the tools like the Ancestral Infant's Head and the Wraith Calling Bell. There's perfumes and crystal tears. There's a lot of stuff that I left out, but hopefully the info and tips here will convince you to start using this game's more simple consumables if you weren't already. The Boiled Crab and Exalted Flesh in particular can really make a big difference in your survival and your damage output, so make sure you grab those and use them when you can. If you found this video helpful, then please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing and joining my channel as a member. It all really helps me out. My name is Diabedor, and I will catch you later.